Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Chapter 16. In the sumptuous and enormous hotel room, Deckard sat reading the typed carbon sheets on the two androids Roy and Irmgard Batty. In these two cases, telescopic snapshots had been included, fuzzy 3D colour prints, which he could barely make out. The woman, he decided, looks attractive. Roy Batty, however, is something different, something worse. A pharmacist on Mars, he read, or at least the android had made use of that cover. In actuality, it had probably been a manual labourer, a field hand, with aspirations for something better. Do androids dream? Rick asked himself. Evidently. That's why they occasionally kill their employers and flee here. A better life without servitude. Like Lou Beloved, singing Don Giovanni and La Noza, instead of toiling across the face of a barren rock-strewn field on a fundamentally uninhabitable colony world. Roy Batty, the poop sheet informed him, has an aggressive, assertive air of ersatz authority. Given to mystical preoccupations, this android proposed the group escape attempt, underwriting it ideologically with a pretentious fiction as to the sacredness of so-called android life. In addition, this android stole and experimented with various mind-fusing drugs, claiming when caught that it hoped to promote in androids a group experience similar to that of mercerism, which it pointed out remains unavailable to androids. The account had a pathetic quality. A rough, cold android hoping to undergo an experience from which, due to a deliberately built-in defect, it remained excluded. But he couldn't work up much concern for Roy Batty. He caught from Dave's jottings a repellent quality hanging about this particular android. Batty had tried to force the fusion experience into existence for itself, and then when that fell through, it had engineered the killing of a variety of human beings, followed by the flight to Earth. And now, especially as of today, the chipping away of the original 8 androids until only the 3 remained. And they, the outstanding members of the illegal group, were also doomed, since if he failed to get them, someone else would. Time and tide, he thought. The cycle of life. Ending in this, the last twilight, before the silence of death. He perceived in this a micro-universe complete. The door of the hotel room banged open. "What a flight," Rachel Rosen said breathlessly, entering in a long fish-scale coat with matching bra and shorts. She carried beside her big, ornate, mail pouch purse a paper bag. "This is a nice room." She examined her wristwatch. "Less than an hour. I made a good time here." She held out the paper bag. "I bought a bottle. Bourbon," Rick said. "The worst of the 8 is still alive. The one who organized them." He held the poop sheet on Roy Batty toward her. Rachel set down the paper bag and accepted the carbon sheet. "You've located this one?" she asked after reading. "I have a Connaught number. Out in the suburbs where possibly a couple of deteriorated special ant heads or chicken heads hang out and go through their versions of living." Rachel held out her hand. "Let's see about the others." Both females. He passed her the sheets, one dealing with Irmgard Batty, the other an android calling itself Pris Stratton. Glancing at the final sheet, Rachel said, "Oh." She tossed the sheets down, moved over to the window of the room to look out at the downtown San Francisco. "I think you're going to get thrown by the last one. Maybe not. Maybe you don't care." She had turned pale and her voice shook. All at once she had become exceptionally unsteady. "Exactly what are you muttering about?" He retrieved the sheets, studied them, wondering which part had upset Rachel. "Let's open the bourbon." Rachel carried the paper bag into the bathroom, got 2 glasses, returned. She still seemed distracted and uncertain, and preoccupied. He sensed the rapid flight and her hidden thoughts. The transition showed on her frowning, tense face. "Can you get this open?" she asked. "It's worth a fortune, you realize. It's not synthetic. It's from before the war, made from genuine marsh." Taking the bottle, he opened it, poured bourbon in the 2 tumblers. "Tell me what's the matter," he said. Rachel said, "Oh, on the phone you told me if I flew down here tonight you'd give up on the remaining 3 Andes. We'll do something else, you said. But here we are." "You tell me what upset you," he said. Facing him defiantly, Rachel said, "Tell me what we're going to do instead of fussing and fretting around about those last 3 Nexus 6 Andes." She unbuttoned her coat, carried it to the closet, and hung it up. This gave him his first chance to have a good long look at her. Rachel's proportions, he noticed, once again, were odd, and her heavy mass of dark hair, her head seemed large, and because of her diminutive breasts, her body assumed a lank, almost childlike stance. But her great eyes, with their elaborate lashes, could only be those of a grown woman. There the resemblance to adolescence ended. Rachel rested very slightly on the forepart of her feet, and her arms, as they hung, bent at the joint. The stance he reflected of a wary hunter, of perhaps the Cro-Magnon persuasion. The race of tall hunters, he said to himself. No excess flesh, a flat belly, small behind and smaller bosom. Rachel had been modelled on the Celtic type of build, anachristic and attractive. Below the brief shorts, her legs, slender, had a neutral, non-sexual quality. Not much rounded off in nubile curves. The total impression was good, however, although definitely that of a girl, not a woman, except for the restless, shrewd eyes. He sipped the bourbon. The power of it, the authoritative, strong taste and scent, had become almost unfamiliar to him, and he had trouble swallowing. Rachel, in contrast, had no difficulty with hers. Seating herself on the bed, Rachel smoothed absently at the spread. Her expression had now become one of moodiness. He set his glass down on the bedside table and arranged himself beside her. Under his gross weight the bed gave, and Rachel shifted her position. "What is it?" he said. Reaching, he took hold of her hand. It felt cold, bony, slightly moist. "What upset you?" "That last goddamn Nexus 6 type," Rachel said, enunciating with effort, "is the same type as I am." She stared down at the bedspread, found a thread, and began rolling it into a pellet. "Did you notice the description? It's of me too. She may wear her hair differently and dress differently. She may even have bought a wig. But when you see her, you'll know what I mean." She laughed sardonically. "It's a good thing the association admitted I'm an Andy, otherwise you'd probably have gone mad when you caught sight of Pris Stratton, or thought she was me." "Why does that bother you so much?" "Hell, I'll be along when you retire her." "Maybe not. Maybe I won't find her," Rachel said. "I know Nexus 6 psychology. That's why I'm here. That's why I can help you. They're all holed up together, the last 3 of them, clustered around the deranged one calling himself Roy Batty. He'll be masterminding their crucial all-out final defense." Her lips twisted. "Jesus," she said. "Cheer up," he said. He cupped her sharp, small chin in the palm of his hand, lifted her head so that she had to face him. "I wonder what it's like to kiss an android," he said to himself. Leaning forward an inch, he kissed her dry lips. No reaction followed. Rachel remained impassive, as if unaffected, and yet he sensed otherwise. Or perhaps it was wishful thinking. "I wish," Rachel said, "that I had known that before I came. I never would have flown down here." "I think you're asking too much. You know what I have toward this Pris android?" "Empathy," he said. "Something like that. Identification. There goes I. My God. Maybe that's what'll happen. In the confusion, you'll retire me, not her, and she can go back to Seattle and live my life. I never felt this way before. We are machines, stamped out like bottle caps. It's an illusion that I personally, really exist. I'm just representative of a type." She shrugged. He could not help being amused. Rachel had become so mawkishly morose. "Ants don't feel like that," he said, "and they're physically identical." "Ants, they don't feel, period." "Identical human twins, they don't, but they identify with each other. I understand they have an empathic special bond." Rising, she got to the bourbon bottle. A little unsteadily, she refilled her glass and again drank swiftly. For a time she slouched about the room, brows knitted darkly, and then, as if sliding his way by chance, she settled back onto the bed. She swung her legs up and stretched out, leaning against fat pillows, and sighed. "Oh, forget the 3 Andys." Her voice filled with weariness. "I'm so worn out from the trip, I guess, and from all I learned today. I just wanted to sleep." She shut her eyes. "If I die," she murmured, "maybe I'll be born again when the Rosen Association stamps out its next unit of my subtype." She opened her eyes and glared at him ferociously. "Do you know," she said, "why I really came here? Why Eldon and the other Rosens, the human ones, wanted me to go along with you?" "To observe," he said. "To detail exactly what the Nexus 6 does that gives it away on the Voight-Kampff test." "On the test or otherwise, everything that gives it a different quality. And then I report back, and the association makes modifications of its zygote bath DNS factors, and we then have the Nexus 7. And when that gets caught, we modify again, and eventually the association has a type that can't be distinguished." "Do you know of the Bondelli reflex arc test?" he asked. "We're working on the spinal ganglia, too. Some day the Bonelli test will fade into yesterday's hoary shroud of spiritual oblivion." She smiled innocuously, at variance with her words. At this point he could not discern her degree of seriousness.